You're listening to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, Episode 9. Hey Cowgirls, are you struggling with your mental game and health during competition or running your business? Are you reaching out to experts for help but feel like nothing is working? Well, on today's episode, I have a very special guest for you that might just be the answer you have been looking for. Someone who I believe you will get a lot from, as I know I have. She is someone who has coached clients from rodeo teams to professional world-class athletes. She is someone whose passion for her work with clients jumps out at you in a good way. She takes such care and attention to making sure every person she works with has the tools to succeed in their athletic pursuits and in their personal lives, in the present and into the future. Her name is Katie Hollingsworth, owner of Krave Coaching and Consulting, and I am so excited to share my conversation with her with y'all today. A good mindset coach can go a long way in helping you achieve the goals and dreams you have, whether in business or competing in the arena. Be prepared to have a lot of notes written down from what she has to say. Unless you're driving and listening to this episode, then you can make mental notes for later. So enjoy and feel inspired by my conversation with Katie. Hey, and welcome to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, hosted by yours truly. My name is Abby Carpenter, and I am a cowgirl and equestrian through and through. I started this podcast wanting to make more of an impact in the equine industry. That's why I am making it my mission to help promote the industry to the public through sharing my love for horses through education and bringing other experts and professionals onto the podcast with me to discuss important topics that impact the horse community. So whether you are a crazy horse lady like me, want to learn more about horses, or want to learn more about the industry, you've come to the right place. On this podcast, we will be talking about ownership, horsemanship, fitness, faith, breeds, and so much more. We believe that it doesn't matter what type of saddle you ride in or the breed of horse you may ride. We all contribute to this community to make it great, and that there is always something to learn from the back of your horse. So grab a coffee and get ready to take some notes, and let's get started. This is the Educated Cowgirl Podcast. Okay, so hello, Katie, and welcome to the podcast. I am very excited to get to talk to you today, but on a slightly more formal setting, I guess. And I think my listeners can get a lot from you and what you do, and because I know I did the first time we talked earlier this year. So to start off, can you introduce yourself to the listeners, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you, Abby, for having me. I'm Katie Hollingsworth. I own a company called Krave Coaching and Consulting, based in Stillwater, Oklahoma, but work worldwide. So I'm a mental performance leadership, business, life coach. I primarily work with athletes, a lot of equestrian athletes, because I happen to have that background. Work with a lot of entrepreneurs. There tends to be a lot of congruencies there. So let's see. Interesting fact about me. I'm about to be an empty nester. This is the craziest thing. So depending on when this airs, I'm within 1 week of sending my only child away to college. Now, granted, she's going 7 miles to Oklahoma State University. However, I'm about to be an empty nester. So that's a pretty interesting thing in my life right now.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be a big shock for you. Like, what do I do with all this free time?
I know.
Yeah. So before we get into the questions, I just want to say, like, I firmly believe that in order for our industry to thrive and grow, it starts with having the right headspace and having clarity with your goals and the future you have for whether it's competition or running a business, which I think you do so well with your clients and everything. So for the first question, I first want to say congratulations, because I just saw that you marked your 5-year anniversary with Krave. Yes. So to start, can you start off by talking a little bit about your background and how that led to starting Krave and then coaching your clients, and then what your main goal was with the business?
Do we have that much time on this podcast? So for 17 years, I'll save you like the story beforehand. So graduate of Colorado State University with a degree in public relations and minor in marketing. And so had pursued a lot of those kind of things throughout my career. And was given the opportunity in the early 2000s, to work for the National High School Rodeo Association. So there used to be, when the Wrangler division or the junior high division first started, I was their national director, produced the junior high finals when it was in Gallup, New Mexico, and really kind of cut my teeth in working with Western industry sponsors. I loved it, but the thing that was very hard was I was on the road 160 days of the year, and my daughter, who's now leaving the house, was an infant at the time, and it just didn't work for, where our family was. So I started a company called the Western Integrity Agency. And one of our first clients was the Women's Professional Rodeo Association. So I handled all of their corporate sponsorship for about 7 years. And in that time, also worked with the IPRA, the International Professional Rodeo Association, in cultivating their sponsorship. We did marketing asset development and website design for companies like Platinum Coach, Signature Quarters, Cactus Ropes, Cactus Saddlery, Flare Nasal Strips. So a number of big in industry kind of partners. Loved what I did, figured out how to become an incredible workaholic in the process. And it was not healthy, right? Like, I had this young person in my house, and, it just wasn't a healthy environment. I had some great employees, but like, it kind of hit a wall, as many of us do. And I think, as a lot of my clients are doing, we're looking for the fix. How do I fix this? What do I do? And so at the time, I didn't know a lot about what did self-development mean, self-reflection. I just thought, let me like step away from the business. Maybe I'll go work for somebody else. They'll help me manage my time better. So Abby, here's the thing I'm going to tell you. Like, as you work through your career, the thing that you'll find is, if you're the hardest working person in the room, people will work you harder. Right. And so that was happening. I was working for a local chamber of commerce here in Stillwater. At 38 years old, I was the oldest one in the building. I was the only one who'd ever owned a business. And although I was doing, membership development, I was also asked to do business coaching, which I know now at the time was really more kind of in the realm of mentorship. Mm-hmm. But needless to say, I loved it. It was a lot about, new business owners coming to the chamber saying, I don't even know where to start with, filing an LLC, who do I talk to about taxes? How do I hire and fire? Some of those kind of things. And so it really sparked my interest. And I happened to have an opportunity to go to a lunch and learn event. So if you see these in your areas, like, it's not just talking heads. Like, sometimes it'll be life changing, like it was for me. Yeah. There was a woman there who was speaking. It was a kind of a self-management systems kind of a conversation. But she was a coach from the Bank of Oklahoma, and she had an undergraduate degree in public relations. And I went, wait, whoa. I didn't know these things went together. I thought you had to have like a background in HR or something like that. And she was like, no, you just need to have a really good education and really good certification. Make sure you go to somewhere that is ICF or the International Coaching Federation certified. And she is like, this is something you can do. Right. So I went home and I started researching. And so I found an organization called IPEC. It's the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. It's based out of New Jersey, training centers worldwide. I signed up on a Wednesday for a Friday class, and I called my husband and I said, hey, can I spend 5 figures on something that is this unknown thing? Because here's what was happening was I was discovering with the marketing agency, mid-level agencies like ours were a dying beast, because things like Canva, WordPress, things that people could do a lot of their own, if they were a smaller or mid-level company, they were doing a lot of their own marketing asset development, or they were going to major agencies. So it was like, something's got to give, something's got to change. And although I had 20 plus years of experience in marketing, there was a lot of positions that I couldn't even get in the door, couldn't get past the automated system because I didn't have a master's degree. Because when I went through college, I graduated in 2001, you didn't get a master's unless you wanted to go into academia. And now it's a requirement just to have a job. So it was like, something's got to change. I have to do something. And so we picked coaching. I walked into the training center in Dallas and they started talking about life coaching. And I was like, well, that's really cute because I'm here to be a business coach. Right. And they were like, oh, you're one of those. So I went through my, when you go through IPEC, it's very much like getting a master's degree. It's 380 hours worth of coaching and training. And so I did my 3 days in person, 12 weeks at home, 3 days in person, and I fell in love with the process, absolutely changed my life. And the more I went through it, I went in there thinking, this is just about business. How do I help business leaders, small business entrepreneurs? It really became, I have been an equestrian athlete. So I've run barrels and roped my whole life. My husband is the head rodeo coach at Oklahoma State. My daughter has run barrels. And I was like, this is a process that can really help what we do. And there's
Right.
not a lot of people addressing it directly, right?
Yes.
There's psychologists, I had worked with a great one because I really suffered with some performance anxiety myself. And I went, wait, this is a way that we can really kind of adapt this into an industry that I love, I'm connected to, and I see a lot of need. So that's where Krave started. I hit the ground running. Like they tell you start coaching right away, even before you're certified. I walked across the street to the neighbor's house and I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I know you've got a basketball player in the house. And she said, sign me up. And that's where it started. And so much of my business is referral. I work with mainstream athletes. I work with D1, D2, professional athletes. I work with entrepreneurs, six-figure CEOs, seven-figure CEOs. It's just kind of taking off from there. So there's there's the short version. And I know that doesn't seem short, but there is the shortened version of how Krave came.
No, that's great. That's perfect. That's perfect. So a lot of you, what you do, like you said, is mindset coaching. For those that might be confused, what is a mindset coach?
Awesome question. So often people will, and it doesn't have to be you're in a place of struggle, because I work with a lot of high performers that are trying to keep on a really high level. But often people will seek out a mindset or mental performance coach when they're struggling with confidence. Confidence is probably one of the biggest things I coach around, whether it's in business or whether it's in athletics, is building confidence. How do you create it sustainably? How do you focus on process mindset versus just outcome? Because as you can appreciate as a competitor yourself, we get totally focused on, are we winning, right? Are we getting the check? Are we getting the ribbon? Are we winning the buckle? And it's like we lose sight of why we do this thing, whether we're professional athletes or whether we're weekend warriors. And so mental performance coaching really comes down to getting to the thoughts that create the feelings that create the actions, right? And so, people will talk about, let's just throw positivity at something, but there's a lot of studies that show that's really not effective and honestly can make you go backwards. And so we got to get to the root of what are we afraid of? Right. What are we concerned about? How do we get through? I help a lot of clients, create plans on how they get through things, because sometimes we'll talk about breathing techniques will be added into kind of that self-exploration. I help people understand both the internal and external blocks, because our environment is constantly against us, regardless of what we're doing. So how do we make this challenging situation as optimal as possible based on the point of view and the emotion management that we bring to the table?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so great. You explained that perfectly. So as I was going over my notes from our phone conversation and then researching you again, you have so many different types of coaching and services that you offer, whether it's for a business or for an athlete. Can you go a little bit more in depth about those services? And something you mentioned with me was core energy coaching. And can you expand on that?
Yep. So core energy coaching is really the premise that IPEC teaches. And I was a success coach with them, so I got to coach coaches. And so it really, it brings to this, to the table, basically this idea of, again, thoughts are creating the feelings that are creating the actions, but essentially there are energetic levels that we move throughout the day. And so, when we think about basic physics that you learned in high school, energy can either be created or destroyed. It's only transferred. And so a lot of times people are feeling at effect of the energy around them. And so, they'll get stressed, and rather than being able to identify, okay, this is a short-term situation, or what is the opportunity, or how do I bring myself out of this? They start just be like that state of overwhelm. You hear people talk about being overwhelmed, often comes because they're not being intentional or conscious of how they're choosing to show up. And so I actually do a lot of corporate presentations. I'm doing a women's lunch and learn later in September around understanding the energy that we choose allows us to create the success that we desire. So sometimes we are unconsciously just moving through life. And that's often when these states of, feeling blocked, feeling stifled, I work with a lot of women, and something that happens to a lot of women who is especially, and you don't have to have children, but a lot of times when we have children, we start giving up our identity for who we're trying to help them be. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily mean we've given up on our dreams, but sometimes we kind of forget who we were in that process. And so there's a lot of rediscovery that happens. Someone might come to me because they're maybe feeling nervous when they go to run barrels. And I really believe, and that core energy system really kind of helps us explore all aspects of life, because how we do something is how we do everything.
Right.
So if we're experiencing this kind of state of unrest in a certain aspect of life, but it's influencing our competitive career or things that we love to do, or how we show up with our children, or how we show up at work, it's how do we break those down? How do we create a state of consciousness so that we understand those shifts are within our power?
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So another service that piqued my interest on the website is your Women of Rodeo series.
Yes.
Can you explain exactly like what is that, and like what does that entail?
Absolutely. So that's a 6-week series. It's all virtual. So women from all over the country and sometimes outside the US will join us. It's once a week in the evenings. Generally, it's on Thursdays. There's going to be one that's going to be launched a little later this fall. And so each week we explore things that are very specific to competitive women. So whether you're, and usually this is high school age and up, like I've had people in their 70s come and be a part of this group. And so we start identifying triggers that might be created in our lives that are around like this inner critic. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but there's like this inner part of us that sometimes will go, who are you to think that you're good enough to do this? Or like you haven't practiced enough, or why would you even want to? So there's this inner critic that kind of holds us back. It's this misguided protection that says, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so it shows up and it really gets in our way. So we explore, I call it Gremlin Ninja Warrior technique. So gremlin is a term that's kind of vernacular in sports psychology. And so we talk about like battling those. We talk about like how to create more consistent confidence. So every week is explicitly designed to help the female competitor address challenges that she might be going through in the arena. And added to that, so a component that's going to be coming in. It doesn't matter who I work with, whether it is a high school athlete, a CEO, health and wellness becomes a part of the conversation. And so in the past, I've actually had my colleague and friend, Doug Champion with Champion Living Fitness, join us and talk about, some various movements to help improve stability, improve strength, those kind of things. Think about nutrition on the road. And so I've actually decided that that's a really important aspect for me as well. So I'm in the process of becoming an NASM certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, because I don't want it to just be, I enjoy the gym, so I'm going to say these things to you. I want to come from a place of knowledge and be able to support that. So you're going to see that worked into Women of Rodeo, where it's going to address some of those kind of things. And there's also going to be launching, again, kind of more toward the fall. There's going to be some groups specifically designed for high school athletes. Because Abby, the thing that I've noticed is young people with well-meaning, not super knowledgeable coaches are maybe sending them in directions that are not helpful for their athletic development, right? Like these coaches may be well-versed in skill, but not how do young women build muscle? What's rest and recovery look like? Some of those kind of things. And so I had a really great experience with a young woman who is a shot put and discus thrower at a D2 school here in Oklahoma. Came out of a great program, but her coach, her track coach is a sprinting coach. And so she was being assigned workouts and nutrition plans. She was eating, and she's like 5'10". She's a thrower, right? Like she's I don't want to say a big person, but like a very strong person, like built to be strong. But she was eating 2 salads a day, one with hamburger on it. So she was eating like 900 calories a day. And so through our work together, we worked together on some things, got her up to like 2,300 calories a day. She gained lean muscle, her whole body leaned out. She started throwing like 10 and 15 feet further than she was. And so it just showed me that integrated process of nutrition, workout, like intentional mindset, performance development really made all the difference for an athlete who maybe didn't have that built-in system like a lot of D1 athletes or professional athletes.
Yeah, no, that's not sustainable. 900 calories, like for an athlete, like that might be sustainable if you're like trying to be a supermodel and you have to stay thin, but not really for an athlete. No.
No, and her body is designed to be big and strong, and she wasn't letting it be because she was so scared of gaining fat. And it was like, wait, like there's so much more to what's going on here. So I asked about like mindset coaching, and some of that is understanding who we are, understanding what we want to have, like
what our
talking
needs are.
ourselves out of like cultural norms that have become this, this is what it means to be female, and some of those kind of things in our culture.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Like I have a friend who she runs a fitness business for horsewomen, and a lot of what she talks about is like with me, she talks about, Abby, I think you need to focus on your protein more and like not focus so much on like how much fat am I putting into my body and all that stuff. But yeah, no, and the whole self-critiquing yourself, that also comes in play with like comparison. Like I constantly am comparing myself, to like my friends who are like higher levels in sorting than I am, and I'm like, wait, I'm not the same as them. They've been doing this longer than me. They have more opportunities to show. Why am I comparing myself? And I think that's where that self-critique comes from, is comparison. So yeah, this is so great. But so third question. So your passion and enthusiasm just like jumps out at you, whether you're one-on-one with a client or you're talking on Instagram in your videos or like to a large audience or group, which I think has attributed to your success with the clients, and they can see the care and attention you put into helping them improve in their performance lives and their personal and career lives. What and or who inspires you to keep going every day, especially on harder days?
That's a great question. See, this is why I asked you for questions ahead of time. Like, how do I come up with this on the spot? So I think that there are definitely clients in my life that, and I'm, because of confidentiality, I'm not going to throw those out there, but there's clients in my life who have really inspired me and shown me what it means when somebody shows up for themselves, how much they can change. One that I've worked with for, I think 3 years, for sure 2 and potentially 3, a young woman who was, her parents kind of came to me, and I'm really careful when a parent calls me, because sometimes they'll be like, hey, fix my kid. And I'm like, that's not what I do. Right? Like a client's got to show up, and they're really got to work for themselves, because I can't do that for them. And to watch someone who essentially kind of got down the path of kind of partying and drugs and those kind of things, and like school wasn't going well, and she was a high school athlete, high school wrestler, which is kind of rare for young women to be wrestlers, and she was really good at it. And she was also a high school rodeo athlete, and that's like the connection that was there. And to watch the change that has happened in her, and her preparing to go to college to wrestle at a very high level female wrestling university, and to have seen the change that she has made, people like that, like that's just one of many examples. But that one sticks out to me as someone who worked every single day, even when it was really, really hard. Parents went through a divorce during this process. Like, she had to take on different roles in her family. And so it started out, how do I switch my mindset about like what it means to just be a teenager, to how do I make the national high school finals multiple times in a row, to now I'm going off into, in a university environment as a high level competitor. Wow, so there's been chaos, right? There's been chaos in life. Right. And so to watch those kind of people, and again, like one of many examples, but that one sticks out to me as just like, that's powerful. Why would I not want to show up every day and be a part of that person's process? And, not like, there's no accolades in it for me other than like getting to watch someone live a really powerful life. Wow, that's almost like bringing emotion out in me. Really good question.
No, I love that. That's so great. Like helping her find that focus, like to, when she's performing, to set aside what's going on with her life personally, to be able to focus on her goals and everything and really thrive in her life. And it extended on into college and everything. So that's awesome. So like you've mentioned, you've worked with a wide variety of clients, and continue to work with them today, with athletes and associations and owners and all that stuff. But so can you take us through what a typical session with a new client might look like, for those maybe considering hiring a coach?
So I would say it's a little bit unique for everyone. So usually session number 1, like even before we sign up together, is going to be, let's get to know each other and make sure this is a good fit. Because here's the thing, and I think you can appreciate there's a lot of providers out there, and not everyone is the right fit for everyone.
Right.
Some people are looking for a really aggressive, keep me accountable, don't ever let me off the hook kind of coach. That isn't me, right? Like I'll be your accountability partner, but we're going to partner on this. You're ultimately responsible for your own success.
Yeah.
Some people really want to be told what to do. So I have a blend of like really pure, like when you look at ICF, like the purity of coaching, we're asking questions, you're coming up with your solutions. And then we provide input on the things like, if you don't know, you don't know, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like, let me send you on a wild goose chase of, discovery when you don't know potentially like a breathing technique, I'll refer a book, those kind of things. So I tend to do kind of a blend of what that looks like. So session number one, are we a good fit? Here's what you can expect from me. Lots of question asking, inserted a little bit with some tools and skills. I'm always asking, and clients will find, it's like at the end of the session, what'd you learn about yourself today? What's your biggest takeaway? Very action focused. Because to your point, a lot of times people will come to me because there is a challenge. Not always. Sometimes people are like, how do I just stay at the top of my game? But a lot of times there's a challenge. And so that first session, we're establishing like, what's success going to look like for us? Because usually when I work with someone, I ask for a 12 session minimum, because I think as you can appreciate working with a trainer, like you go to the gym 1 or 2 times and you don't necessarily see a lot of effect, where if you start building a habit, you start seeing some effects. And so minimum 12 sessions to begin with. So we describe what that's going to look like. And so I do have a pre-designed system. And it's funny, I was actually meeting with a colleague, another coach of mine who used to be a client a little bit before this call. And we were talking about, there's a really great system called the Energy Leadership Development System. And I use it a lot for teenagers because sometimes they want to do self-development, but for them to come to a session and I say, okay, what do you want to work on today? Because it's not me, it's you telling me what's important to you. And they're like, I don't know, I just know I want to be here. So I do have pre-designed curriculum that we can work through so that if people say, hey, I know I want to do self-development, but I don't know where to start, that's an option. Yeah. But sessions do consist of, clients leading the dance. What do you want to work on today? What do you want to spend our time on today? What's most important to you today? Yeah. What will success look like at the end of today's session? Because at the end of the day, if I'm telling you, hey, this is what I think is important for you. Now, do I have a client who comes and they're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know today. I will start digging. Right. Yeah. And I think that's, you start digging and you're like, hey, what about this? Like, how was work today? How's this relationship going? Tell me about what's new with your horse. Yeah. How do you feel like you roped today? And then we start digging. So that's usually session number one, is just exploring the process. Are we a good fit? And honestly, Abby, if we're not, like, that does not offend me. If I'm not who you're looking for, or for instance, I do have people who work with therapists and me, or sports psychologists and me, but I'm very clear about staying in my lane. I'm not a mental health professional. And so if someone has that need, I will say, hey, I really feel like maybe we need to start here and then come back, because coaches are very focused on where are you at today and where do you want to go? We're very goal focused. There is a therapeutic effect in some regard, because we will kind of talk about some past events, what part they're probably playing on your current life. But I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. And so I will definitely, kind of make that observation of, are we a good fit from that standpoint as well?
Yeah. So you give them like the tools to succeed in the future, and so that they can go on even after either they've left you or gone on to other things. They still have those techniques and tools in their toolbox to continue. Yes. Yeah. So you mentioned this earlier, but a lot of people, including me, suffer with performance anxiety, whether it's from comparison or critiquing themselves, or they're nervous, or they're just scared, or whatever brings up anxiety for them, whether it's competing or whatever. But what are the best tangible ways that we can start to change our mindset, either on the day of competition, leading up to it, and that can help us start to create a plan that is sustainable for the future?
Okay. So number one, because like what you're describing has a lot of nuances, right? But number one thing that I would offer to listeners is, think about how you're communicating to yourself about the situation. So the word nervous, like with my clients, and it's really funny, like I've got a bullfighter that he'll key in when he's used the word, because it's so common in our everyday language to say, oh gosh, I'm so nervous today, or asking our young people, how are you feeling? Are you feeling nervous today? And so what happens is when our bodies hear the word nervous, it incites this fight or flight response. So that's basically what you're feeling when the butterflies come and those kind of things. Is essentially cortisol is coming into your system. It's flooding your system in preparation for fight or flight. I like to call this poke the bear in the eye or run from it, right? And so we're in a fight or flight response. Many of us as competitors compete because we love the hit of adrenaline, but when we feel it, we're like, oh, this is a scary thing. So as soon as we say nervous, as soon as we say scared, as soon as we say scary, our body goes, wait, I need to do something about this.
Right.
And so when we feel butterflies in our stomach, for me, when I was suffering with performance anxiety, I would lose feeling in my fingertips. I would see black shooting stars. I wouldn't remember the majority of my run. Like there's some times that I'm very thankful that I had the horse I did, because he kind of did it for us. And so what was happening is essentially fight or flight. So the chemicals in your body are shutting your system down in preparation for that process. Digestion is slowing or stopping when you feel butterflies or you feel sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
And your heart rate is up, your respiration is shallow. All of that is related to fight or flight. So the number one thing that I would tell listeners, if they want to just start on their own, is think about the language that you use. Because I know it sounds kind of like trivial to be like, well, don't say nervous. But what happens is we say nervous, we say nervous, we say nervous, and then we go to compete and we're like, I'm so confident, I'm ready to go. And your body's like, wait, but you just gave me that signal.
Right.
So thinking about being very cognizant of, if you feel adrenaline, that means you're ready to compete. Because I think, as you can appreciate as a sorter, like if you didn't have that state of readiness, like muscle tension, your eyes, dilating, those kind of things, like you would fall off.
Right.
So adrenaline means readiness.
Yes.
And so we start to switch that in our brain to say, this means I'm ready. And we start to remove anxious, nervous, overwhelmed, because your body's listening. Right. And your body is like, it's really interesting that we almost have these like two parts of us, because we talked about that inner critic earlier. So this other part of us says, oh, fight or flight, got it. I'm going to kick all these chemicals in. I'm going to start the sweating. I'm going to start all of these things that our old limbic system says it was designed for caveman days to do. Right. Yeah. And so language is super important. So the thing I would encourage you to do is reduce the number of times you're saying nervous, overwhelmed, anxious. I don't care if it's in the boardroom, to the classroom, to the arena. Think about how you use that language. I look forward to when I get to compete. I'm excited, because the difference between excited and nervous is the label we give it. And once we give it that label, it takes on a whole different physiology. Okay.
Right.
The other thing, Abby, I would say with regard to language is your brain does not hear don't, not, or can't. It hears affirmative. So for instance, a barrel racer goes to go in the arena and her parents say to her, just don't hit a barrel, you're going to be fine. Or you say to yourself, just don't miss that calf, just don't whatever. Abby, if I said to you, and this is my number one example, people who've heard me speak, they're like, oh my God, this one again. But like, it works. If I said to you, do not think of a purple elephant with pink tennis shoes, what are you thinking of right now?
An elephant.
Okay. So the same is true when you go to compete, or you go to give a speech, or you go to a job interview, or whatever it is. And if all you're thinking about is the thing I don't want to do, that's exactly what your brain's going to do. Okay. So think about things in the affirmative. Do make a clean run. Do catch a calf. Do hit your point, whatever it is you want to do, think in an affirmative way. Because when we talk about the difference between competing, hoping you don't lose, versus competing to win, those kind of things make all the difference.
I love that. I love that so much. Oh, that's so much to take in, but that's so great, which my listeners will love. But you already gave so much, but if you could give like one final nugget of advice to help others like set their goals, or with competition, or planning, what would that be?
Okay. So can I do a couple? Because it seems like
Yeah,
my
no, that's
nature. Is that
okay.
okay?
That's
Okay,
okay.
so please if today is the first time that you have thought about, heard of, whatever, mental performance, please don't let this be the last conversation you have about it. Okay. Because you see all kinds of things on social media, like how much, 90% of competition is mental. It's true, right? Like the best athletes in the world will tell you it's mental. And so few of us do anything about it.
Yeah.
We'll go rope the dummy a million times. We'll go ride our horse a million hours. We'll even go to the gym or, those kind of things. But we talk about it. We give it lip service, but we don't do anything about it. So here's the thing I would encourage your listeners to do. Start having if nothing else, internal conversations about what this means. Read books. There's great books out there. I'll give you a couple that I love. So the Mind Gym is going to be one that's awesome. There's going to be psycho-cybernetics. A lot of bull riders like psycho-cybernetics. Talks a lot about mind muscle connection. Yeah. With Winning in Mind is one of my absolute favorites. It was written by a US Olympian, which I think that's kind of the difference. Is a lot of these books are written by sports psychologists who've observed a lot of things, but that one is written by someone who executed really well. Yeah. So those are a couple I would think about. Be discerning about the podcasts you listen to. Okay. There's great ones out there, and there's people who have, just like TikTok or anything else, right? There's lots of garbage. And so be discerning about, are you listening to experts or are you listening to someone who maybe has done a lot of trial and error and wants to tell you their story? Okay. Right. So be mindful of what you're consuming, because we have a choice. Like you talked about core energy coaching, and thank you for bringing that up earlier, is all about choice. So if we're traveling to an event, I spend a ton of time in the pickup hauling my daughter here and there. We do a lot of audiobooks, right? Throw one in. Right now I'm listening to something called The Compound Effect. So you talked about goal setting. And so that's a great one, written by the gentleman who owns Success Magazine. Talks about how small changes tracked over time. So tracking the things. So whether it's your steps, whether it's your macros, whether it's number of pages read, number of hours written, whatever, tracking is a key to success, and how we slowly make incremental changes. Because the thing, Abby, that doesn't set us apart as competitors is not our goals, it's our systems.
Nice.
So one of the people that I work with is, or one of the groups I work with is the rodeo team at Oklahoma State. And I will say every season we have about 50 some kids on the team who wants to go to the CNFR. All of them raise their hands. Okay.
Yeah.
3% likely will go.
Yeah.
And the difference in those kids are the systems they create, not because they had the goal. And so that would be the thing I would encourage listeners to do as well, is really pay attention to, are you focusing on your systems? Are you doing the things you'll say you're due? Or you're just writing something down? I'm like the queen of sticky notes. Are you just writing something down and like hanging it up and hoping that does a good enough job? Because you saw a meme somewhere that says a goal written down is, means something.
Yeah.
So those are just a few things I would encourage you to do, but please let today not be the first and last time that you engage in mental performance, because it is a huge part of how we compete. It's a huge part of how we show up every day. It's a huge part of how we think about ourselves, and confidence from a sustainability aspect becomes work. It doesn't just show up. And if we wait to win to be confident, we're likely going to miss out on a lot of life.
Yeah, no, that's so true. That's so true. Like, your mental game is everything. So I like to end my interviews with a little this or that game. So I'll give you two different options and you'll choose which one you prefer.
Okay.
So morning or evening?
Okay, wait. Are we talking about productivity, or what are we talking about here?
Are you a morning person or a night person?
I enjoy mornings way more for like working out, productivity, those kind of things. But a good evening sunset and a glass of wine, man, those are the best. So nice. A little bit of both.
Love it. So sweet or salty?
Oh gosh. Can I keep doing this little bit of both thing?
You can.
I am. I'm not a huge, I don't love cake, but like a piece of dark chocolate with salt on it, like I love that. So
chocolate covered pretzels. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. A road trip or flying somewhere?
Gosh, man, well, I love a good road trip. Like we've made so many memories just going to huge youth rodeos and big events. Like, I'm going to take the road trip.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Nice. And then summer or fall?
Fall.
Fall. Oh, yeah. All right. Katie, I have loved every minute of this conversation. Like, it's so great. I know I got a lot out of it, and I know my listeners will get out of it too. I love talking to you again. So thank you again so much for taking time to sit with me today.
You are so welcome.
Yeah. So, for those interested, where can they find you and Krave Coaching online?
No, that's a great question. So go, my website is Krave, Krave, coaching.com. Information is there, packages, those kind of things. I'm on Instagram. I'm on, the business has its own page on Facebook. The other thing, Abby, I would tell you is if you've got listeners out there who potentially the financial aspect is a barrier, I'm also a provider with the Western Sports Foundation. And so what they've done is they do fundraising year round to provide primarily for rodeo athletes, but equestrian athletes, the ability to apply for services. And that's everything from me, sports psychology, nutrition, physical fitness, financial wellness, social media, marketing. You can go in and apply for those services through Western Sports Foundation if approved, and it's very rare no one is, they're not approved. So you can actually access services to me at no cost for a limited number. So if that's a barrier for someone, please go to WSF.com, go fill out a mental wellness application. I don't want people to have that barrier and think like this is only for people who live in a, certain socioeconomic level. That is also an option too, because we want this to be something that's accessible to all equestrian athletes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been so great. I hope to talk to you soon.
All right, Abby. Thank you so much. It's been truly a pleasure, and I wish you the best on this podcast.
Thank you.
Doing awesome things. So,
wow, wasn't that conversation with Katie just amazing? I feel so motivated to work on how I approach my mindset in the arena and in my career, and I hope y'all are feeling the same. As Katie said, let this be just the beginning of your mental performance journey. If you feel like Katie is the coach for you, I have put the links to her website and to the Western Sports Foundation and her social media handles in the show notes. However, if you feel like you are not quite ready for a coach yet, there are so many other ways you can get started. From listening to inspiring podcasts about mindset, one of my favorites is the Ed Milet Show, or finding some good books like the ones Katie suggested. Your mindset going into competitions and business is just as important as your physical health, so don't let it stop here. As Katie said, as a coach, she helps you find the tools you need to succeed, but it is up to you to make sure they stick. If you loved this episode, please share it on your social media and tag me at The Educated Cowgirl and Katie at Krave Coaching. Then head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this show and leave me a 5-star rating and review. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Educated Cowgirl podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, learned something new, and will come back for more. But for now, stay blessed and ride on, cowgirls.